she's with us now. Chief Rackney, welcome. Thank you so much for joining us once again, although, of course, I'm sorry about why.
I agree, and thank you for having me and at least providing an opportunity and space for our perspectives and opinions to be heard.
When you saw the body cam video that was released, I'm sure this isn't the first disturbing video that you've seen of an encounter like this, but what stood out to you?
It was painful. It was painful, you know, as a Black woman. It was painful as someone who's a Black husband, you know, as a wife. I've got my brothers and my cousins and my nephews. And what was gut-wrenching is the cries for his mother. He's 80 to 100 yards screaming mama, but the cries of desperation that maybe his mother could somehow protect him, as Black mothers have always been forced to protect our children against institutions of violence and supremacy.
We're going to hear what these former officers have to say when they go to trial, but it seems that part of what they're angry about is that he ran. What's all that about? Like, don't make me run, like that kind of thing. What is that about?
I came on in 1984, and there were those kinds of unspoken, if you disrespect me, if you make me run, there's this curbside justice, this punishment that I'm going to give you. We saw it in Freddie Gray. We're going to make you pay for the fact that you required us to do what is part of our job. And it's running, it's being in shape, it's you didn't speak to me in a manner that I want to be spoken to. They used every obscenity, every demeaning and degrading obscenity against Tyre Nichols. So it's not even just the physical punishment, it's the demeaning way in which we speak to him as well, that says we are allowed to treat you any way we want to.
Is this kind of thing taught? I mean, is this the kind of thing that you're taught to do?
The training on paper is very different than the socialization and the indoctrination. We send these subtle messages all of the time that go against the formal training that we have on our lesson plans. And we do that through, hey, you've got to come home every night. You've got to make sure that they never do this to you again, that they never think about challenging you. And those subtle messages are always us versus them.
It's been reported that all the officers in this incident, although subsequently I do want to mention that 2 EMTs have been fired and 2 sheriff's deputies are being investigated for what they failed to do in this situation. But the former officers who were involved directly in this incident were members of something called the Scorpion Unit, standing for Street Crimes Operation to Restore Peace in Our Neighborhood. And it was supposed to be responding to so-called crime hotspots. Okay, look, it is a fact, and it is known that you know, according to FBI data, Memphis was the most violent metropolitan area in the United States in 2020. They set a record for murders in 2021, breaking the previous record of which was set the prior year. So this kind of specialist unit where people are going to jump out and you know, confront people supposedly, this has been done in other places, and there have been many abuses reported. There have been lots of, you know, scandalous incidents connected to these so-called specialized units. What is the thinking in law enforcement about this? Is that that's the best you can do, or is that what the public wants to see?
This has been a long history, long-standing. When you have these specialized units, there's a tendency to cover up based on self-preservation. A lot of what we're seeing coming out of Memphis right now is self-preservation for policing.
And how do you stop what you call this kind of indoctrination versus training? I mean, you've spoken about this several times. You said that there's training and then there's indoctrination, and the indoctrination starts immediately. How do you intervene in that?
We've got to reprogram officers as to what their job is, right? It is not in us versus them. We are part of the fabric of society, and until we realize that we are no better than them, or the rest of society, that we don't get to, met out justice, curbside justice, because we don't believe there's going to be justice in the system. When we stop saying it's not the 5, like this has been going around, that represents the 800,000 other police officers. Yes, it is. Until we own and acknowledge, as part of our history and part of our teaching and part of our trainings, that we are part of, oftentimes, sometimes state-sanctioned violence, until we as the policing profession refuse to comply with what the state is requiring of us and what the institution is requiring of us, it'll continue, and that's the only way that we stop indoctrination. We have to resist as well.
That's Michelle Brackney. She has decades of experience in law enforcement, most recently as the former chief of police of Charlottesville, Virginia. She's now a distinguished visiting professor of practice at George Mason University. Chief Brackney, Professor Brackney, thanks so much for talking to us today and sharing this expertise with us.
Thank you so much for having me. You be well.
And we'd like to let you know that I, along with other members of our team, will be in Memphis tomorrow. We'll be talking with community members and leaders, including Representative Steve Cohen, about where the city goes from here and what changes they'd like to see in Memphis and across the country. This is All Things Considered from NPR News.
More of All Things Considered coming up here on New Hampshire Public Radio. Otherwise, for tonight, partly to mostly cloudy with low temperatures from 15 to 30 degrees. Then tomorrow it'll be cloudy, some light snow or snow showers in northern New Hampshire. There's a chance of showers in southern areas of the state. Highs tomorrow 35 to 45. Monday, a mix of sunshine and clouds, high temperatures 25 to 35 degrees. And ahead for Tuesday, it'll be mostly cloudy with highs in the 20s. Support for NHPR comes from you, our listeners, and from Manchester Boston Regional Airport, MHT, working to help take the stress out of travel. Flight times and ticketing information at flymanchester.com.
Here in New Hampshire, we know resources are precious. Unspoiled wilderness, clean air, pure water. To be a Granite Stater is to know we must protect these for future generations. However, it's easy to forget that community resources like public radio need your protection too. Reporters with integrity, stories that bridge our divisions about issues that matter. These are all things you've come to expect from NHPR. Help protect this precious resource for future generations by adding just one sentence to your estate plans. Learn more at nhpr.plannedgiving.org.
Support for NHPR does come from you, our listeners. Additional support comes to us from Three Bearings Fiduciary Advisors, offering tax-aware financial and retirement income planning, in addition to investment management services. More details at threebearings.com. NHPR is live, local, and listener-supported, and we're also available wherever you are. Listen live anytime at nhpr.org, on the NHPR mobile app, or just ask your smart speaker to play NHPR.
Support for NPR comes from this station and from Melville Charitable Trust, committed to ensuring all people have a safe, stable, and affordable home that allows them to thrive. Information about ways to prevent and solve homelessness is at melvilletrust.org. And from the Walton Family Foundation, working to solve social and environmental problems to improve lives today and benefit future generations. More information is at waltonfamilyfoundation.org. This is NPR.
This is All Things Considered from NPR News. I'm Michelle Martin. Earlier this week, volunteers and officials fanned out across the Washington, D.C. metro region to conduct something called a point-in-time count. That's an effort to figure out exactly how many people are living on the street or in shelters on a given day. It's just one way governments are trying to get a handle on how many people are dealing with homelessness. And that's a problem that's become increasingly visible across the country, where tent encampments are emerging and growing in places that have not seen them before. Last month, the new mayor of Los Angeles, Karen Bass, called it a state of emergency in her city. That's just one reason we thought this would be a good time to check in with someone trying to address homelessness and other housing issues, and not just in Los Angeles, but across the country. So we've called Housing and Urban Development Secretary Marcia Fudge. Madam Secretary, thank you so much for speaking with us once again.
Always a pleasure to speak with you.
So you're familiar with this, the so-called point-in-time count. It's used to capture, a snapshot of people living outside and in shelters on any given day. The Department of Housing uses the survey to help determine just how much funding jurisdictions should get. And everybody recognizes that this is not a perfect tool, but it's one tool. according to the 2022 Annual Homeless Assessment Report, it found that nearly 600,000 people were homeless on a single night in January last year. Now, this has been, a focus of your administration. The administration says that it wants to reverse this trend and bring it down substantially by 2025. So I just wanted to first just get your take on, why are we seeing what so many people are seeing? As we said, your former colleague Karen Bass said it's like a state of emergency in her city. What do you think are the contributing factors here?
What we are seeing, because primarily of the pandemic, we saw the numbers go up for 2022. A large portion of that, probably almost a third of those, or a fourth, let's just use a fourth, are veterans. So we've got VA that is working diligently to make sure that we get people housed. We have people like Karen Bass who have already started to take thousands of people off the street. The governor of Oregon has also deemed it a crisis. And so everybody now is focusing their attention and their resources on making sure that we can get at least those who are unsheltered off the streets as quickly as possible. But we're also looking at the fact that we are working with cities. We have about 100 cities and communities that have agreed to work with us and give us a definitive number of people they plan to get off the streets. We've already hit our goal for last year, which was to create 100,000 new housing units and getting people off the street. So those numbers are going to come out in the next week. So I think you're going to start to see the numbers go down.
I do want to point out, you were a member of Congress before taking this position. You were also a mayor before you took this position. So you're not unfamiliar with some of these issues. Is this primarily an affordability problem, or is there something else here that we need to talk about?
About 40% of all homeless people in this country live either in California or in New York. And so pricing has put them out. The economy has created an environment in which people just cannot afford to live. And so, yes, that is a problem. But we always had a problem. We've had a problem over the last 10 years especially. And so the problem just got worse because of the pandemic and the economy. So it is both. But my biggest concern, Michelle, to be perfectly honest with you, is people don't even realize who are homeless. We have families with children who are sleeping on the streets, senior citizens, primarily Black women. When you start to talk about our seniors and our children, the urgency becomes greater.
So going back to Los Angeles, you pointed out Los Angeles and New York have the largest number of people who are continuously unhoused. In the report by the LA Times, 3 of Los Angeles's main housing authorities failed to properly spend $150 million in aid between 2015 and 2020. And when they were asked about this, one of the agencies blamed your department. They said it's your rigid and complex funding system, which makes it really hard to spend funds quickly or reallocate money that can't be used for its original purpose. How do you respond to that?
Well, I respond by saying it absolutely is not true. And I think that it is proven by the fact that we have a brand new mayor who comes into Los Angeles, and she is changing it overnight. We've not changed any rules. The problem was in Los Angeles. It was in California. And so when you have people who have the will and the ability to make change, they do it. It has never been our restrictions. We don't hear that from other states. They all work under the same rules. You just have to want to do it. And Mayor Bass wants to do it, and it is happening.
All right, well, let's move to another topic in the time that we have left, which is housing discrimination. This is something that the Fair Housing Act has been the law since 1968. What is it that isn't working?
We still redline properties. We still live in segregated communities. We are looking at communities all over this country who are still living like they did in 68 when this law was passed. We are still looking at a racial wealth gap that is bigger today than it was in 1968. And so we know that we have to address discrimination, and the Fair Housing Act requires us to do it. We are saying to cities, you are required by law to try to make it better. And so we are putting out this rule that basically says we want you to submit to us a plan to tell us how you are going to address discrimination in your community. And HUD is going to have oversight over that plan and make sure that you're doing what the law requires. It's just really, really simple.
What's the enforcement mechanism here?
If we find that cities or communities are not in compliance, we have a number of things we can do, up to and including not funding them. And we intend to do just that. We're saying to them now, you must go to your community, you must talk to them about what these plans do.